Down there is the Pyramid of the Sun, and just to the left, the Pyramid of the Moon. Now, one of my purposes today, aside from retracing my steps from years ago, and also to see some new things, is to see some of these places behind the scenes. In other words, the part of the ruin that has fallen into great decay. Now, this is in pretty bad shape. I don't think all of it was like this, but they leave behind, or leave alone, some of the old construction, and no one knows if this was perhaps an earlier construction that wasn't correct and fell apart. This is not uncommon, even in Egypt. Over there, you see more of that, where the stones have just sort of tumbled into a heap. And here you see again, just across the way from where I just showed you, a good deal of the rubble that remains, and really who knows how this happened. Perhaps it was an earlier part of the city which, for a learning period, failed. It doesn't have the shape that you'd expect. No straight lines except here and there. Well, right there ahead of us. But look at that. I find this very fascinating, the combination of the beautiful straight lines, the hard lines of their construction, and then you see this kind of rubble that fell. And who knows, maybe this was very tall at one time. Perhaps deep within that was at one time a taller building which collapsed and leaves only a few straight lines to suggest fine construction at one time. And again here I'm guessing at Cantera being the stone, but I don't know. Some of this is a different kind of lava. And of course, originally, when the Spanish, well, even before that, when the Aztecs discovered this and the Spanish came later, there were lots of weeds and grass covering everything. Oh, wow, look at that. Look at that. And I will say right here, I had not been to this southern section before. This area is so big that you don't always get time to see everything. I won't today. Now I'm going to shut off the camera and walk ahead about a mile. I'll catch up with you there. a very strange structure over there that might have been a temple or a pyramid and collapsed or was taken down, perhaps by earthquake, warriors, invaders. But it's a mess. You often think that these pyramids are perfect and stable and indestructible, but if you study the pyramids of Egypt, you'll find that many of the early pyramids there collapsed. We think of the 3 pyramids of Giza and they're near perfection, but many were not, dating back many centuries earlier. Many of those fell. Here we are looking at a large section of smaller structures. Perhaps this was an area of living quarters, homes, houses, less than temples, you can tell. I'm not going to be able to go around all of this today. There's just so much. I'm thrilled to see it because I did not get to see this south half earlier when I was here as a younger man. Here I have digressed a little from the main route and found this little temple area. Who knows? I call it a temple. I guess that's what they always call it. These more central structures tend to be thought of as temples, whereas the rest of this might have been dwellings. Isn't that interesting, though? It just goes on and on and on. I don't have a guide today because I sort of wanted to take my own time. I wanted to see things sort of quietly. There's a spirit here that you need to connect with. You need to separate from the noise of conversation and thinking and people. You're sharing a space with people, but you don't have to share their vibe. I'm not being metaphysical about that. I'm just saying that it's special when you can just sort of stand here and be alone. When I was here the first time, I remember walking in a certain part of this area, of that area way down there, and absolutely nobody around me. For some reason, I was suddenly and very much alone, and it was kind of spooky, but I never forget that experience. And back there where I just was exploring, I thought by the time I made it back to Teotihuacán, I would have studied, I would have read books, I would be an expert. But every time I've tried that, I realize that is a distant hope. There is a lot known now that was not known when I was here earlier, and by earlier I mean 45 years ago. When I was here earlier, apparently a good deal of this, or a great deal of it, was not uncovered from the sand and weeds that had blown in over the centuries and covered much of this. You know, you can look here and see grass coming up in this section. Over there, just beyond me, can you see there? It's covered with grass at the top. Now, what I understand is that when both the Aztecs discovered this around 1300 or so, was it? Or thereabouts. And the Spanish, a couple of centuries later, that a lot of this was just almost invisible. It was perceived as just sort of a place of lumpy ground because the grass in the valley here was the same as the grass up on these constructions. So it was very hard to see at first, except for the largest of the pyramids. Those three were hard to miss, even though they too were probably covered with this. And now, I should remind you, this is the dry season for Mexico. We're very dry right now. The first time I was here was in June, and it was green. Not so now. Look at this. You have to just look and peek through and appreciate all the little details. And wonder about the meaning that it had, and wonder about the beauty that it had. Imagine that at one time, in addition to this, there might have been something on the top, like a structure of some kind that was additional. Look, there it is. What was I saying? And over there, that mound has not been excavated because maybe they think there's nothing there to uncover. But now look at this. Astonishing to think that I'm walking in a place which has no explanation, that dates back before the Europeans came to this hemisphere. This is the prehistoric, meaning there was no written history, pre-Columbian, meaning before Columbus, and pre-Hispanic, before the Spanish came. This might have been a place of ritual, perhaps human sacrifice. And I think I've gone too far and can't get down. I'm in a corner. Well, so let's go back. Next, I'm going to pick up over there where those first few people are walking, or maybe just a little beyond. Each of these tiers or local zones, man, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I can see 6. Okay. Look at this line of steps. Look at this. Black. Wow. I'm going up. Are you coming with me? Or are you checking? Well, to be honest, I think I've already seen about 30 places that you could kill yourself. There's one there. Wow, it's everywhere. So along with exploring, you really need to watch your feet. There's no way down here. Another dead end. But look at that. I'm doing it. I said I wouldn't, but you can't do this and not go up to the top. It's impossible for someone like me to just watch.